Meeting to order, Senate retirement. We've got a quorum. Thank y'all for being here. And Senator McLaren, would you like to lead us in a word of prayer?
Would be happy to. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Please bow your heads. God, we are here today to do the people's work as always. We are rushed by deadlines, but we hope that we will be deliberate and empathetic and conscious, thoughtful in the work we do with this committee today for the benefit of all Georgians. In your name we give thanks. Thank you. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Okay, Senator Hickman, if you'll come forward, sir. We're going to get you to present Senate Bill 150, LC number 560274. And the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee. Many of y'all know from what we've been involved in so heavily, education has really become a passion of mine. And the more I dig into it, not only through the literacy stuff, and I think I've told y'all, I'm married to a retired teacher, 2 daughter-in-laws are teachers, and now we got a granddaughter-in-law teacher. So I also have dug into that a good bit. And in November and December of 24, Senator Dixon and I had 3 different informal committee meetings, and the whole thing just was, why are people getting out of teaching and why aren't people going into teaching? And so we found out through that there's a lot of reasons about it, and that kind of led to the preparation of this bill and the passion that I have behind this bill. So we learned through that process that we got a teacher shortage, a huge teacher shortage. We got a principal shortage, and we also got a superintendent shortage. And the principal and superintendent shortage are obviously leaders in the system, and you got a lot of those people are retiring out now. So that's a concern. I commonly refer to it as I really believe, and I think we're already into it, we really got a teacher cliff. We got more people getting out than we have coming in, and it's a real issue, because if we don't have teachers, we don't have good teachers, we're not going to have students that's learning. So that's a big concern. So a lot of the reason people are not in education anymore is daycare is a big situation, or lack of daycare. No pay for student teachers. I'm going to tell a little bit why we get to this point. No pay for student teachers. Our granddaughter-in-law went to Georgia Southern and taught in Vidalia, and for her student teacher, she got $0 a student teach, and she got 0 travel money to go back and do 50 miles each way. That's an issue that we got to really readdress. Lack of male teachers is a big deal in the system. The starting teacher salaries, according to QBE form, is about 41, 42, 43,000 a year. And I know in our area, we start out at count, it's about 65,000 a year. So we got a lot of issues there that are this. Cost of housing, the school climate, and of course, the Page, I'll take a little bit out of the Page organization book. They said that after 20 years of service, there's no eligibility for increase in salary, which is hard to imagine, according to the QBE formula. And Page says that 79% of the teachers that are teaching today are not likely, or either they're neutral or recommending somebody get into the teacher profession. I know the Governor's Office of Student Achievement is now at Georgia Southern, Mr. Chairman, for the next, well, they were here 2 years, 5 more years. And last year when I was out, I go out there every year to talk to their parents and all. And last year when I was out there, they had school of engineering, school of business, school of nursing, school of education, right on down the line. And at every one of those tables were the different schools, they had students talking to them, except for education. And I went up to the lady that was there at education, and I said, and of course, some of y'all will remember this. I told her, I said, you look like the Maytag repairman. She didn't know, Senator Goodman, she didn't know what I was talking about. You know what I'm talking about. But I said, nobody's talking to you. And she said, she didn't know I was state senator, didn't really know who I was. She said, I had a young lady come up here a few minutes ago, and her mother said, no, you don't need to be a teacher. You need to come over here to one of the other things. So we got a real issue that we got to deal with. And so our bill going forward will address this situation on a temporary basis until our schools and all can gear up. President Pro Tem in the House, Jan Jones, did a very good job with a bill addressing some of this, and it is working. Her bill was identified as the bottom 25% schools, and in order to come back and teach full time, you had to have been in the system 30 years. You had to wait out a year to come back. I'm an accountant, CPA, and I deal a lot with people when they get ready to retire. And I sit down with people, and people will have 3 or 4 or 5 pages. I'm exaggerating a little bit, 2 or 3 pages of stuff that we're going to do. This is what I'm going to do when I get out. When I retire, this is what I'm going to do. And Senator Goodman, in about 6 weeks, they've done everything on those 2 or 3 pages. And so we're going to address. So hers, she's got a year break in service. Ours a little bit different than that. And then hers addresses science, math, and special education. So let me get into our bill a little bit and tell you again why. Jody Barra, who is the commissioner, head of Professional Standards Commission, told me that in December of 24, December 3rd, 24, we had 5,300 teacher vacancies in Georgia. That's good news. The bad news was there was 6,000 the year before. So, and we also in the rural areas, we got parapros teaching. So y'all can see where we're going with this. And so our bill, Senate Bill 150, we propose lowering the eligibility retirement from 30 years of service to 25 years. Why do we do that? In talking to Mr. Buster Evans, who is here today, and he will speak. The teachers, when they retire now, it's more of a retirement at 25 years than it is 30 years. Also looking at the data, that's the data from TRS. We also want to reduce the mandatory waiting period for staying out from 12 months to 60 days. In talking to Mr. Evans again, I said, why have y'all got a year? He said, well, the IRS says you got to have a break in service. I said, well, what do they say the time period is? He said, there's no specified time period. So I said, in working with Mr. Evans, I said, well, why don't we do 30 days? He said, well, why don't we do 90? I said, well, let's compromise on 60. So we compromised on 60-day break in service for basically 2 months. We also, as I tell you, we got 5,300 vacancies in Georgia. This bill will allow the principal or the HR person to hire a person, if it's a social studies teacher they need, or a science teacher, or a music or art, or any of those levels teachers, but cannot hire any athletic teachers. No coaches, no nothing like this. This is strictly for academics. Big deal. And then most important, I really believe with the effort that the Literacy Council and House Bill 538 is doing with the Georgia Early Learning Act, that we're going to overcome this cliff. And so we have put a sunset provision in this bill. Then the sunset provision is June 30th, 2034. So along in this bill, and I'd like for Mr. Buster Evans to come up here and join me now, Mr. Chairman, because I want Buster to address whenever a teacher comes back and they can teach full-time, receive the salary, and also receive their retirement.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Buster. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, I'll have to confess to you, working with Senator Hickman on a bill like this has been a highlight of my career since I have been up here. So thank you, sir. And the spirit of this bill really, really suits very well what we need to do in public education, helping to ensure that we have quality teachers available to work in the classroom. We have, as we indicated, we know there's a teacher shortage, and one of the more valuable resources for school systems across the state are retired educators. Currently, we have about 15,000 retirees go back to work in some capacity in schools as a substitute teacher, or maybe part-time, or either even full-time under this. So there are some things in the original bill that were put there as guardrails to ensure that early retirement was not overly incentivized. And what do I mean by that? I sort of have a facetious statement in that the longer our school systems pay them, the less we have to pay them. Okay. And that really works out actuarially for us. So we don't want to unintentionally do things that overly incentivize an early retirement. Consequently, that was why when the original bill that was passed in 2022 had several of these parameters that Senator Hickman has already referred to, including the 25 years to 12-month break in service. So with that, we have administered this now this is the third year. Currently, we have about 450 retirees working full-time under this provision. It's really heartwarming to know that the biggest area where they're coming back is in the area of special education, secondly, math, and thirdly, science. So even though the numbers are not large, it certainly has been very effective as far as educational policy. We support that. And I'll be glad to try to support Senator Hickman or answer any questions as it relates to the retirement system.
All right, have a question from Senator McLaren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good to see you both. And I wish I knew how to butter up Senator Hickman as well as you do. I'd get a lot more done in the Senate. But
I've decided I want him to buy my next car for me.
100%.
He's got
It's
that
just-
negotiation
the
skill.
skill level is so high in the room today. So I guess you kind of answered my question. What is the policy reason not to do something like this already, and why did we have the guardrails already? And I just want to know for clarity, the main reason is early retirement, getting people into the system when they know they can serve. I mean, double dip is
Sure.
kind of an aggressive and pejorative way of putting it, but to be paid out of both the salary and the TRS at the same time, obviously, is a bigger burden and a much bigger benefit for them if they take it earlier. Are there any other reasons why we wouldn't want to expand this system? Like, for example, are we worried about trading off opportunities for teachers that are more junior in their career, or is this really just about the finances of putting people into both systems at the same time?
Let me tell you, the statistics show that 63% of teachers are gone after 5 years. So this is an incentive to fill those gaps, particularly, Senator, in those rural areas where there's no housing for teachers, no housing for new teachers come in and all. So as I stated earlier, there's a big cliff involved.
But I mean, I guess what I'm trying to conceive of the big picture here, because, there's so many ways to talk about the teacher,
Right.
hiring and retention issues. Obviously we have our talking points about, what's happening in the classroom, and that's going to make it easier or harder for teachers. But this, the comp issue is a huge one.
Right.
And it sounds like what this is really all about is a stopgap measure when we have a shortage, when we have a crisis, to allow for a little bit of comp at the back end, to keep people active and engaged and bring some extra people back. And like you say, the natural patterns, it seems like, for people to come back is an area of demonstrated need. And even if we relax those rules a little bit, we can expect high levels of public service motivation, everybody coming back for the right reasons, and the people who are good at it coming back would be my guess. I'm just trying to get a sense, because what I don't want to do is I would be Senator Goodman. Is that the fourth time today that you've gotten that call? Yeah. He just likes listening to that song. He's got to pick different ringtones. But what I would worry about is if we've got a more prolonged shortage, if we've got a problem with teacher hiring and recruitment across the board that is more like a generational problem. We've only got so much leeway with this system to give people an additional incentive to come back. And we're stacking our incentives at the end of a career rather than at the beginning. I just kind of want to have a larger conversation with the committee about, this is one thing we can do about teacher hiring and retention, but it seems like there's only so much leeway we've got to use this tool. Am I misstating that?
No, sir. I think, Senator, what we found out through this whole literacy stuff, there's so many things that have come up and keep coming up that really should have been addressed years ago, and all of a sudden now they're coming to light. And this is teacher shortage. The powers that be have known there was a teacher shortage, but it really has not been addressed as the pro tem addressed 2 or 3 years ago. And then this bill was just a center of it. But keep in mind, again, this bill has a sunset. I'm very convinced over a period of time, as hard as we're working right now with education, the Speaker of the House said the other day, he's never seen two committees work as close together as the education in the House and education in the Senate is doing. And we are. And I really believe we're going to solve the problem. I think this is one of the most solvable problems we've got.
Okay. Yeah. And the sunset, I think, makes me feel better because one thing I am wondering is, does this reflect a policy decision to give younger teachers the impression that later in their career they might be able to do this? Or is this something where we're not trying to create the expectation that this kind of thing will be available at the end of your career?
No, sir. It really is just trying to fulfill the stopgap that we got right now.
Or right
Really,
now.
yeah.
Okay.
And again, if you think about it like this, if a teacher graduates when they're 22 years old, 25 years in the system, and not but 47, and what are they going to do the rest of their life?
Right.
And hopefully they'll want to come back to teach through this program.
Well, I think it's a good bill, and I appreciate you taking time to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Senator Goodman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, thank you for bringing the bill.
Thank you,
I thought it was 2021 when we did Senate Bill 88. I carried that bill on behalf of the governor, but I lose track of time, the teacher pipeline package bill. One of the questions I was going to ask, and I remember this stuff well, in terms of even though when this retired teacher comes back to work, they're still paying into the teacher retirement system. At the time, if I remember correctly, it could be negotiated between the teacher and the school board or the superintendent as far as whether or not they were paying half and half, or that the school system was going to pay the total part. Is that still going to be ongoing as far as the teacher retirement system?
Yeah, the current law, as well as legislation that is proposed here, would have the employer school system continue to pay the TRS employer contribution and the employee contribution, but yet that employee would not earn any additional service credit for retirement purposes. Once again, helping to ensure that it does not cost the retirement system the money that would be coming into the retirement system through QB money that's earned at the local district, but not sent to TRS. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. One more follow-up question. So my wife went to school and got a degree in child and she's a CTA director, right? It was family and consumer sciences. Of course, we live in a very rural area.
Mm-hmm.
The teacher that she had gotten the degree to take her spot, she taught for 38 years. And so anyway, I remember it almost got to be a joke that, Carol was waiting for her to walk out the door kind of thing, So just, and I agree with the last bill that we did. It was narrow in scope, and the RESA was going to decide what those three areas are. But when someone goes and gets a degree for teaching, you have to be certified, or you get certified in that particular subject matter or whatever. Are you concerned at all about this, I guess you could say, blocking our young teachers that have gone and gotten a degree to teach in that field? Are y'all at all concerned about that?
I will say that is an extremely good question, because historically we had a bill like this that sunset in 2000, that was repealed in 2012. That was one of the largest reasons given for repealing that bill, because that was post-Great Recession. Local school districts were still recovering because they did not have the revenue, and so they weren't hiring, and we did have teachers not getting hired at that particular point. I think this particular area that we're in right now for most districts is there's a significant teacher shortage, and for those areas of most shortage, this is a tool that local school boards and superintendents can use to fill those vacancies. Great example that I'm giving is not unusual for me to get a call from a superintendent in September. And they said and got one not too long ago from, I think, Senator Harbin's district. Their calculus teacher walked out the door in September. He's got a classroom of kids who are hoping to get into Georgia Tech, but they're going to go all year long without a calculus teacher. This is the kind of bill that ensures that we can put teacher quality in a situation like that to help kids, help parents, and help provide pathways for not just education, but for also other educational realms.
And Senator, if you remember the bill you're talking about, also identify it was only related to the bottom of 25% of schools in Georgia. So in this case, this is all of Georgia.
Okay, well, thank you.
Senator Harbin.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Good bill.
Thank you.
Question, joint positions. I was just thinking you were talking about teachers, but you're excluding athletics. Many times a coach or someone like that is also teaching math or he's teaching something else. Is there a provision that allows that to happen? Because, you know, if you need a coach and he can teach math, that seems to be, that's a multifunction knife, if you will. Can you have someone like that in this position?
From our standpoint, administering a bill like this, that's a great question. Some of the greatest coaches that I know of have been math teachers and various other content areas. We would simply have to look at that from an administrative standpoint in approving this as I look at it, because there again would be coming back in this particular case as a teacher and not in the coach. So we would probably figure a way to discount whatever coaching responsibilities and just allow them to be approved just for that teaching responsibility.
We have put so much emphasis in our school system, Senator, on athletics. Athletics is so easy to raise money for. All these failing schools have got these $8 million stadiums, artificial turf. And that just is a burning thing in my mind because athletics does not necessarily make a child be able to read. So we didn't want this bill to have anything to do with hiring somebody to come back with athletics.
Se-
Think about this. My calculus teacher was a coach. He was a tough coach and a tough calculus teacher as well, but he was good at that side. But you could hire him. He may not be a coach, but you would just hire him for the teaching position only. Am I correct?
That would be the way we would see that it would be implemented. Yes, sir.
Okay. Other question is, I understand these teachers retire at 20 years. They hold their position and you're funding still TSR, I'm sorry, amounts to them, but they don't get additional credits for years of service. Is that correct?
First of all, they have to have, under the current legislation, a full 30 years of service. This would change that to 25 years. But the second part of the answer is yes, they would not earn any additional service credit for their time that they continue to teach.
Okay. But they would then they could draw their retirement, but then be paid. And really, I think it's a win-win situation because many times I'm in a financial advisory situation. So many people have not prepared really well for retirement. This is a great way that you've got somebody already trained, ready to go in, if you will. They're sitting on the bench and you give them a reason to go in. And if they can collect their retirement and work, I say that. Are they also subject to benefits? That was my other question, is that are they subject to health benefits and everything else, just as if they were fully employed?
The way that it is administered, health benefits would be paid by the local employer in that particular case.
That would be different from what they would otherwise be, correct?
If they're retired, it would be taken directly out of their retirement check to state health benefit plan.
So that's a raise for them. Am I correct?
Yeah.
It's a raise for them.
Could be. Very well.
Okay. That's what I would see it as a raise. I see some other companies and other things using plans like this, taking people who are at retirement but are not ready to quit and are needed. And I think institutional knowledge, I hate to say, is dwindling in a lot of places today. But thank you. Good bill, I think.
Senator Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize for being late and I may have missed some of the conversation that I needed to hear. So my first question, Mr. Chairman, is to you. Is this a retirement bill that carries over to next year?
Yes, sir. All the bills we're hearing today will get them out so they can be studied and get an actuarial.
So our vote today would just be whether or not to request an actuarial study.
That is correct,
Not
sir.
really do pass.
That's right. Yes, sir.
Thank you for that clarification. Do you mind if I
Go right ahead.
further? So the 8th district used to have a really outstanding senator that was an expert on retirement plans and a real mentor of mine. And he, I think, probably had a flip phone, not a phone with an obnoxious ringtone. But these type of measures always gave grave concern to Senator Black, if you'll remember. And I, as I said, he was kind of a mentor of mine. So I share some of those same concerns. Are we going to inadvertently encourage seasoned educators we've already commented on how experienced they are and good in the classroom they are because of that experience. Now they can retire at age 25. Excuse me, at 25 years of service. And we're hoping they're going to double dip and come back and stay in the classroom, but there's no assurance that that's the case. So are we going to lose some of our best and most seasoned educators by giving them opportunity to leave after 25 years instead of 30?
Senator, I think you might have come in after this, but I stated, according to Jody Barra, Professional Standards Commission, in December 3rd of 2024, there were 5,300 vacancies in Georgia for teachers. Now, the good news about that, the prior December, there was 6,000. So I think probably back at that period, and you really back at probably at that period of time that you're talking about, the teacher profession was really a revered profession, and it's not revered like that anymore. So it's not as attractive to stay in. And also we got on this bill, we got a sunset provision on this bill. It sunsets 34, June 30th of 34, so 9 years. So hopefully what we can do is to use these teachers as a fill-in while we build up the education system in Georgia and really deal more with the science of reading in Georgia, and we get our universities teaching teachers how to teach children to read. And that period of time it'll sunset, and we'll have the teachers we need in the classrooms.
Okay. One more question, Chairman, if you
Yes,
don't mind. I would be a lot more, certainly I'm going to support you in getting an actuarial study done on this. And I want to thank you, Senator Hickman, for all the passion and effort and time and what you're doing to make a big difference in our education. And I really respect you for that. If we could do away with the waivers and make teachers teach what they're only allow them to use certified teachers for the right class, I'd get a lot more excited about this. And how do you feel about that? I guess,
All
just
that,
to make it a question.
I think in our education committee meeting that, and particularly in appropriations last week, that came up several times. And I think we all have that passion for that. But right now we got a shortage of teachers, and we got a feeling, we average of 30 teachers short in every school system in Georgia right now, or as of December 24, 30 teachers short.
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Let's see, Senator Mangum.
Thank you. Likewise, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for my running a little behind this afternoon rather. And part of my question was answered, but while I was waiting, but the funding, tell me about the funding for these. Is there any, I don't think this addresses anything about the funding for these different persons, but where would that come from regardless?
Well, Senator, if you're thinking about, these are slots, these
That
are
are
not
already
additional
waiting.
slots, these are slots that are empty now. And so the funding would be in those slots that are empty. Now,
already waiting, the money's already budgeted,
that's right.
and we just, okay, 5,300, thank you.
5,300 vacancies as of December 3rd of 24.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Senator Gooden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And you're right, Senator. The former senator from the 8th was, let me tell you, he did have a flip phone, and I'm pretty sure he still does have a flip phone. But I tell you what else, when you ever hear that old saying about people, just because they talk slow doesn't mean they think slow. The former senator from the 8th actually scored perfect on the math portion of the SAT in 1962 at Lowndes County High School, believe it or not. So that's why he was good. He was a good numbers man. Just one quick question. Is it not, and I've talked with my wife about this before, you retire at 30 years with 60%. At the 50% mark, is that 25 or 26? So if you retire at 25 years, what percent of your salary do you get?
You would get 50% if you chose the maximum plan. The other thing to keep in mind is you can only retire with 25 years full retirement if you've got 60, if you reach the age of 60.
Okay.
So it's not like you can retire at the age of 50 with 25 years. You're ineligible for retirement without taking a penalty.
So, Mr. Chairman, one more follow-up question. Why wouldn't these folks, knowing if they plan on staying in teaching, why wouldn't they stay in there and get the 60% instead of retiring 5 years early?
Good question. Some people just reach the age of 60, they're ready to leave. And having that flexibility based on my experience as an educator.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to read something in the bill Senator Harvin asked. It says in the bill on line 22, talking about positions, said full-time capacity as a certified teacher of pre-kindergarten through grade 12 who has his or her primary responsibility to academic instruction of students in the classroom in the area other than athletics or coaching. So it would have to be your question.
The word is primary.
That's right, in the
He
classroom.
might could do something else.
That's right.
Paying on the salary, he loves coaching, he could still do something like that.
That's right, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Let's see, Senator McLaren.
Mr. Chairman, I have an overwhelming desire to hear from the general public on this bill. And if there's nobody from the public here,
We do have them.
yeah, I was about to say, I figure we got people to hear
Yeah,
from.
I've got one lady, Ms. Margaret Ciccarelli. If you'll step on up to the table, please.
I'm Margaret Ciccarelli from PAGE, the Professional Association of Georgia Educators. We appreciate the chairman's bill and support it. It is one of two pieces of return to work legislation, which is moving through the General Assembly. The other is a more narrow piece that has been suggested in the House. If we do not move one of these pieces, one of these bills, this program will sunset in 2026. To date, more than 400 educators in high needs areas around the state have come back to work under this bill. The majority of them have come back to work in high needs areas such as special education, and then for second and third math and science. So these are important positions to serve Georgia students. We really appreciate the chairman's philosophy on this to allow a little bit more flexibility. And that's reflected in the 25-year service requirement under this version that really reflects the age at which the average TRS member retires. And we also appreciate some more flexibility about the areas in which they might be able to come back. I know that he's explored that heavily in his teacher workforce study committee that the joint ed and higher ed committees have been looking at. So we hope that you will move it to actuary and that we will be back here next session to try to pass either this bill, the other bill, or a combo of both.
Okay, Senator Harbin.
Yes, ma'am. I just, thank you. Appreciate your input. Wanted to ask this question. Money is one thing, but the other part, do y'all do an exit interview on teachers who are leaving? I know in my business, we try to do an exit interview to know what motivates someone to leave. Is it environment? Is it hours, or what's going on? And I was just wondering, has anything like that been done so that you realize they're leaving because of, let's say, healthcare, or they're leaving because of retirement, whatever it is? Do y'all do anything like that to look at the reason they're leaving? And is it strictly a money issue, or what's there?
That's a great question. And the chairman actually cited some of our survey information when he began the bill presentation. We don't do an exit interview, but we do survey educators who stay. In our most recent surveys this year, we actually found that salary was not the top reason why they leave. Working conditions and how and that includes student behavior and the feelings of burnout that may come from that, and how they interact with school leadership are also major factors for why teachers may leave. And y'all are trying to address that with other pieces of legislation that is coming through the House and Senate Education Committees, and we appreciate that. Money is only part of the answer.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We're getting tight on time. What is the will of the committee? Yes, sir, Senator McLaren.
I would move that the committee send this bill to actuarial study.
Fantastic. Do I have a second?
Thank you.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? So carry. Take it
Thank
forward.
you, Mr.
Thank you,
Chairman,
sir.
committee. We are making a difference, and I just will tell you this, the Senate House, the Senate and the House, primary objectives for education is safety and literacy and the policy there too. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Albers, if you'll come forward now, please. And take your pick. Choose your poison. Which
All
one
right.
you want first?
Well, I'll tell you what, why don't we start with 143, if that's okay with you, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Morgan Worst, with the firefighter pension fund happens to be on Zoom. If our, media folks. Oh, there.
There he is.
Okay. Just in case I need a little backup on this, these bills, are very close to what you just talked about, so.
All right,
that'll be
Senate
appropriate.
Bill 143, LC number 560297.
Exactly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman,
Thank you.
distinguished members of this committee. We have crisis in staffing in a lot of places. We just heard about teachers. Another place we have them is in first responders, specifically for our firefighters. Years ago, we actually addressed this for our law enforcement officers. So when they retired, they could come back to work and do what they love to do. And they're most experienced officers that we have. We cannot do that today for firefighters, though. Those who go ahead and spend a career doing this, whether it be a full-time or a volunteer and paid into this fund, I want to make sure everyone understands there's no state tax dollars whatsoever in the firefighter pension fund. They cannot come back and work in the fire service when they leave. And boy, do we need them. And I know staffing is very important. It's critically important in schools. It's important in all our businesses. But there's none more important if you dial 911 and nobody shows up. So in this case, I worked very closely with our Friends Firefighter Pension Fund. This is, of course, another 2-year layover bill. It will require you to send it to actuary study as you did the last one. It combines to make sure that service members who are eligible that are at least 50 years old and have the combination of credible services of 80. So that would be 50 years old, 30 years of service, that they can retire and they no longer pay into the fund nor receive credit to the fund, but they could draw their retirement. We wanted to work very closely to make sure the fund was very solvent. I want to give a lot of kudos to the members that have paid into it for all these years, but specifically Morgan and his team. They were the first people to jump into alternative investments, which has seen a much higher yield of return, made the pension fund in great shape. It's a pretty straightforward bill. Some of it's just showing how it works throughout the entire bill. I won't have to read it line for line for you, but I'm happy to answer any questions or ask Mr. Worst to comment as well.
Okay. Any member have any questions? And again, these are all just to be passed out, to be studied in between the two sessions. So Chair, entertain any questions or a motion if you wish.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I do not have a motion. I have a question. Is there a list of these alternative investments that we could get, Senator?
Yes, I think Mr. Worst, who runs this pension fund, could probably provide that to you. He was
I
the.
would be certainly interested in that.
I think we could certainly do that.
Yeah, it's currently invested in 20 different funds, but everything's subject to FOIA rules, so that is available.
Can we get that? Can we get that, Mr. Evans?
I would ask Morgan if he would email that over to the chairman so he could disseminate to the committee members. That's
Yes, and
okay.
could you send
Sure.
that out to us?
Yeah, I'll send you our latest quarterly report.
We'll get it to
Thank you,
you.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anyone else? Senator McLaren?
Mr. Chairman, I would, at the appropriate time, I would make a motion that we transport this bill to actuarial study.
Let's beam him up, Scotty. Do we have a second? Have a second? Senator Goodman, okay. Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? So carry. Okay, go right ahead with your second bill, please, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Senate Bill 198 is LC 560312. This is our legislative retirement system. A little bit of background for those that aren't familiar. Legislative retirement system is funded by all of us. There are no state tax dollars in this fund, haven't been, and my goal is to make sure there never is. One of the things that was done several years ago, though, is because the fund was way overfunded, we increased that benefit amount up to $50 for everybody who was in the fund at that time moving forward, active in the legislature, and we left behind everybody who retired before. I don't think that's the right thing to do. So the first thing this bill is going to do is it's going to make sure that we catch those folks up first and foremost. The second thing is the fund will never go below 120%. You may say, why 120%? Well, working with my great friends behind me with ERS, who manages our LRS system, that is so if something happens in the market or something changes, we would never, ever need state funds. But once it's above 120% and everybody's got the same benefit, we don't have to be involved in the fund anymore. Because it's very hard for a legislator to come back, even if the fund was at 180% or 200%, to say, I want to, quote, give ourselves a raise for retirement. So this takes it out of our hands, puts it in the very capable hands of them to say, when it's overfunded, then they can simply make the adjustment themselves on whatever the amount is going to be for credible year services. So let's say they move it up to $55, $60, whatever happens to be over time. That'll make it very simple. They'll never make the change less than $1 at a time, because that would be a little silly in order to keep track with. But I think this is a really smart way for us to approach this system. And as the legislature continues to move on, whether salaries increase or stay the same, whatever it happens to be, this is, I think, just the right way to do it to keep the process clean and smooth.
Question for the chairman.
Yes,
Sorry.
sir, Senator. Go right ahead.
Quick question, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman. Are you saying it is not your position that every increase in benefit for the LRS should be put on the ballot in November of a general election? Is that your position, Mr. Chairman?
I'm not sure that's what this bill says, my good friend, but
No, I'm saying, you don't think that every dollar benefit multiplier added should be submitted to the voters every 2 years?
I think that would be a little bit much.
It might be a little much.
Yeah, I think the voters are very smart, and I think they will trust us to know that we're not going to use any of their tax dollars for this system.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
See, Senator Harbin.
Yes. No tax dollars from the people. This is all money that's coming from the senators or legislators, correct?
That is correct.
Am I correct also that the retired, we're going to bring the people who have already retired, we're going to bring them up to the current level that this will support. Am I correct?
That's the first thing that's going to happen, is they're going to bring them up.
Up.
Yeah. We may have a couple of retired legislators behind me who may be in favor.
I wondered when he came in, what that was for. Now I know. Okay. So that will bring them up, and then any future legislators will come in at the same amount. But
Took it out.
all retired will have the potential, as the fund performs upward, will have an increase that will occur automatically without anybody getting involved, correct?
Absolutely. You couldn't have said it any better.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
All right. Any other questions from any member? Seeing none, what is the will of the committee? So Senator Harbin make a motion to move. Senator Davenport, second. Any discussion? Any other questions?
Send it, just pass it.
We're sending it
To
for
study.
passing it out. We're beaming it up, Scotty, with the others. Okay.
I didn't know if I should come up with another verb. Okay.
All going to study. All right. Any other discussion? Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? So carry.
Mr. Chairman, thank you so
Thank
much to
you,
you and your
sir.
committee.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Guess that covers all of our bills. So this meeting will stand adjourned. Thank you.